Hey guys, welcome back to Heroes of the Storm. Today I'm going to be teaching you guys quickly how to play Elite Tauren Chieftain or ETC. ETC is a melee warrior and he's one of the heroes that got massively buffed by the last patch, and I think he's probably now in the top 5 warriors. ETC, the way you play him is slightly different than the way you play other warriors. He has incredibly long cooldowns, quite sufficient self heals if you spec for that way. It's really quite easy and quite effective at, to stay alive, and can really lock down an enemy team. And in 1 or 2 plays and 1 or 2 moves, combos you can pull off, can really win you the entire game. And as a result, he has this kind of pseudo carry effect where he can win you games, but he doesn't actually get that many kills. So, if you know him, you know his abilities are Q. As you can see, it has a very long cooldown of 12 seconds. It's a very short length, unless you actually spec for it, and even then it doesn't increase that much. It does a very small amount of damage, but the important part is it moves ETC to the target location, and it stuns anyone it hits. So this means that you can use this to get into the enemy team, and if someone's out of position, you can isolate them really well. Also, it means you can peel incredibly efficiently, and it means that it's just a very good move. But unfortunately, because of its cooldown, you're going to be very lucky if you get this off twice during a fight. So the only time you're going to use it is you're going to get to use it once. And as later on you will get to use it twice, but under very specific circumstances. So you want to use this move sparingly and use it when you're guaranteed to get at least one person to hit. Otherwise, use your W. You can use this to engage as well if you really want to engage super hard and you're picking a fight. You use this move to engage and get in the middle of them. The next move is Face Melt. As a 10-second cooldown, so slightly better. You might be able to get this off twice during a fight, but don't count on it. And this knocks enemies back. This is going to be an amazing move to use for peeling. You can just stand near the person who's attacking your assassin, cast W, and it will throw them out in a random direction, inflicting a little bit of damage, and as you spec it, it'll inflict other things like more damage and slows and stuff like that. Your E is your sustain. It has an 8-second cooldown, so you're going to be able to get it off twice during a fight, and it restores a little bit of health. It won't probably save your life, but it's really useful out of combat for just healing up to max really quickly, and it can mean that you survive a little bit, just a little bit longer. It just makes you that little bit more difficult to kill. So the way you play ETC is you can either play him one of 2 ways. You can either play him, and you can switch the way you play this mid-fight. It really don't have to pick one or the other. You can play him super aggressive and use your Q to slide in, and then body blocks as well as attacks, and W's to isolate 1 or 2 members of the enemy team and have your assassins blow them up. Or you can play defensively and use your Q and W to peel for your assassins and as they kill everyone else in your enemy team. It really depends on how your team is working and how your team is functioning mid-fight, how you choose to do this, but you can do it either way. But be very careful. Be under the impression that once you use a move, you won't be able to use that move again for the rest of the fight. So if you can hit a 5-man stun, hit a 5-man stun. It's gonna peel. It's gonna do all kinds of good things, and it's gonna give your team 1 and a bit seconds to line up a really powerful move and a really big swing in the fight, which could win you the fight. With W, use it when you know you're gonna knock enemies back. Don't knock them back into your team. Knock them away from your team at all times. Just try to make sure you're hitting assassins, and don't knock your assassins further away. Like, if they're melee assassins, knock them away. If they're ranged assassins and they're far away as is, knock them towards. Basically, people like Reyna and Valor and Falstad, Kel'Thas, Jaina, knock them towards your team. Players like Illidan, Thrall, Arthas, knock them away from your team. That's basically the way you do it. As far as talents goes, this is where things get a little bit controversial. So at level 1, I like Rolling Like a Stone. It increases the range of your power of your power slide by 25%. Means you can hit 25% more things. You can go 25% further. It means your engages are a lot easier. I really like this talent. The only time I would pick anything else would be Prog Rock, and the only time I would pick that is when we have no healing at all, and then I would spend the majority of the game farming regen globes and then just making sure that you use your guitar solo a lot. So Rolling Like a Stone is good when you have. If you have 2 supports or an Uther and a Tyrann, someone like that, you can take Rolling Like a Stone. If you have no supports at all and you're really worried that you're just not going to be able to stay alive, take Prog Rock. I would say Rolling Like a Stone is probably your your safer choice here. At level 4, it's pretty easy. Double neck guitar is incredibly strong. It means that you can stun 100%. It's 100% more likely you're going to stun things because you've got double the radius, and you slide faster, which means it's incredibly difficult to get away from it. At the original the original speed, if you are at the edge of the range and they continue moving, they will most likely get away from it. With the increased width and the increased speed, they really won't. Enemies, there's less time to react because you are not invulnerable and you are not unstoppable during the duration, so if they do stun you or get a move off, you're going to go 30% further because you're travelling 30% faster. So double neck guitar and the other talents just suck here, in all honesty, so double neck guitar is going to be the only one you're really going to want to go for. At level 7, again, it's kind of simple. A lot of people did use Guitar Solo, the Guitar Hero, sorry, for a while. It's not very good. Loudspeakers is just incredibly good. It means that your knockback is 50% further, and there's no... The only time that gets bad is in team fights, which I'll go over in a bit, but otherwise knocking people back further or from further away is just the best place you can do in that one. At level 10, go-to talent, never pick anything else on this tier. Only ever pick Mosh Pit. Now, I do lie. Stage Dive can be used in very, very, very specific circumstances. Preferably a combo move, like you have like the Medevac and ETC and all kinds of other things, and you can stage dive on a location and just really just get into a position like Blackheart's Bay where you know the enemy are. But 99% of the time you're going to want to take Mosh Pit. So, the way Mosh Pit works is you have to move to a location first, and everyone in the area around you will become stunned for 4 seconds, assuming you land it, unless they are affected by outside, by a cleanse. Even though even a cleanse won't work anymore, because basically the way it works is it applies, continuously applies a 0.75 second stun. So, if someone is made invulnerable or has a relentless effect, they won't be able to get out. Relentless Axe doesn't let you get out. You still continue getting stunned by it. It's because it overlaps enough. But basically, everyone around you is going to be stunned. So you need to be in a position where you're going to hit at least their backline. Now, the thing you need to be careful about is any form of disposition or stun or silence will interrupt this effect. That means things like penetrating round, displacer grenade, all kinds of what's it called, Divine Storm if they're positioned right. All kinds of moves that stun you will interrupt this. As a result, you need to figure out who can interrupt you and on the enemy team and stun as many of them as possible. Hopefully, it'll only be 1 or 2, and they'll both be in the same role. For instance, it'll be like Tychus and Kel'Thas, and then they're both at the back line. You could stun them both at the same time. Obviously, you want to stun as many people as possible, but if there's one person that you can leave out, if there's one person that you don't have to stun, it's usually going to be the warrior, because the warrior either will have a difficult time getting back to your team, or will just not be able to interrupt you, or have to use a big move like a Blessed Shield or something to interrupt you. And trading ult for ult while it's really bad might be quite good in the situation where you force everyone out of position. So I would say make sure you get the back line and get as many people as possible. If you land a 5-man mosh pit out of a brush and your whole team's backing you up, make sure your team's backing you up. This does no damage. So if you stun 5 members of your team and you're on your own, it doesn't matter, you've done nothing. But when you stun the team, if no one's immediately coming, start pinging, like really get people's attention and be like, hey, you've got 4 seconds here, you can kill everyone in your team, and you can kill everyone on the enemy team, and you can really, really just win games doing this. But the way I like to do it is I like to try and get a flank or get behind somewhere, bushes or something, and you can really quite overextend with this ability as long as your team is backing you up to some extent. And basically the way you do it is you just slide in and then immediately mash R while you're sliding. The stun will stun anyone in your way, and anyone around you will have to backtrack. And if you do it right, you should get everyone, so that there's like, you're here stunning 2 or 3 of them, and the rest of the enemy team are on this side, and they have to run into the stun or face your team that's coming in on them. So that's the way you do it. Try and get on them, just behind them, just at the furthest back point they are. And then cast it. It's got a wind-up time, so as you see, it's got a 0.75 seconds. It's very obvious. Everyone on the enemy team will hear the cowbell. That's what it's called. And then you'll start stunning people. So your team needs to back you up, but you need to be very careful. If you land this well, you will win games, no question about it. Moving on to the next talents. At level 13, again, things get a little bit controversial. I like all the talents on this on this tier, in all honesty. I think Groupies is very good, again, if you have no healer, and if you take Prog Rock, it can work, because it heals you, and so you're going to be using it a lot more, and then it heals everyone else in your team. You can get a surprising amount of healing off of this. Obviously, there's no way to track it, because the end game screen doesn't track healing given by warriors. But it can heal for a surprising amount, so don't not pick this talent. If you have no healer and you're not dying at all and you're spamming Guitar Solo to keep your health up, consider taking Groupies. If you're having real trouble finishing people off with slows, people just running away from you, consider getting Face Melt. The amount of slow it is 80%. Now, it fades rather quickly, as it is over 2 seconds, but they will be slowed by 80% for a second or two, and in that time you can just collapse on them and do some significant damage. Showstopper, 25% damage reduction. God, I can't speak today. for 4 seconds. So if you engage on them for 4 seconds afterwards, you'll be taking 25% less damage. This does stack, so if you have Safeguard on you and this, you'll be taking 50% less damage. And if you have Safeguard with the talent on this, you'll be taking 75% less damage. So it can quickly get out of control, and if you are being focused like quite a significant amount, consider taking this. But when you take this, you're going to have to use Power Slide aggressively. It kind of leans it towards that, so I do quite like it, but what I do prefer is Face Melt, so that would be my go-to talent. And of course, if they're mages and they're just doing ability damage and really wrecking you, which is unlikely, but if they are, consider taking Spell Shield, because Spell Shield is just very good. The go-to talent on here will probably be Face Melt. Again, if you have no healer, take Groupies, and if you're getting focused quite heavily, take Showstopper. But Face Melt is going to be kind of your go-to one. Now, at level 16, again, I quite like a lot of the abilities on here. Now, I'm going to go over them again, and I'm going to do exactly what I did last time, but this one is going to be slightly different, because you have to be more situational here, and you have to think about what you've built in the past, because you can stack ETC to be too good at one job and not good enough at the other jobs. So at level 16 Speed Metal, it works surprisingly well. Now, it's only 2 seconds and it's only 20%, so it's going to be useful if you're having those team fights where everyone needs to adjust position quickly. So if you have a lot of people like auto attackers or people like kill fast people who need to continuously adjust their position and they can't be out of position for too long, Speed Metal is going to be good. This is probably going to be your go-to talent on this one. There's nothing bad about moving faster, so just remember that. Echo Pedal's good if you're really lacking damage. 130 damage doesn't sound like much, but when it actually does hit, it's a surprising amount of damage, and it can really start to stack up. The way it works is it is around you, so if you cast Q, you'll hit them, and then 2 seconds again, you hit them again. But if you cast W, you'll hit them with the first one, but then if they stay at that range after you, you won't hit them with the second one. So if you cast Q and then instantly W, you'll miss 2 ticks of that, because you'll miss the second tick of Power Slide and you miss the second tick of Face Melt. So in that way, I don't particularly like it. Apologies for that. And what I do prefer is I don't like Encore. I can see why it's cool, and if you're really fighting for position in a map like Cursed Hollow, it can kind of work. Or like when you're fighting for bosses or Sky Temple, stuff like that, you can cast Encore to just throw people away, and it works kind of well, but sometimes not really too well. It tends to just be more of an annoyance than anything else, because it only knocks them away, doesn't deal damage, so it just becomes more of an annoyance for your team. And Imposing Presence is very good again if you're getting focused. If you're taking what's it called, Showstopper, the reduced damage taken, you can take Imposing Presence, but you do risk again stacking too survivable, and you don't have the utility. So Speed Metal is going to be your go-to talent on this tier. At level 20, don't take Death Metal. It rewards you when you die. It seems good, but it rewards you when you die. You don't want anything that rewards you when you die. You don't want to be dying. Every other ability on this is kind of good. I really prefer Tour Bus just because it increases the duration by 2 seconds. That's 50%. Those of you who weren't paying attention before, that's a 50% duration on a stun, which will already win you the game. It just gives them more time to win you the game. Storm Shield's good if you're really getting focused and you're not getting Mosh Pit off at all. And Bolt the Storm helps you if you're having a hard time getting Mosh Pit off to Bolt and Mosh Pit. But I don't particularly like it because you still have the wind-up time and you don't use Power Slide to get the stun off to increase the wind-up time. To decrease the wind-up time. So Tour Bus is going to be your go-to one here. Don't be afraid once you get this to use Mosh Pit out of position and then to slide into position to get a good Mosh Pit off. You'll see a lot of people only doing the QR combo. Once you reach level 20, you can do the RQ combo, and as you read here, it refreshes the cooldown on your Power Slide, so you can slide, Mosh Pit, slide, which is a really interesting thing. But again, because of the wind-up time, it does take a while, and that doesn't always work too well, because people will just see you coming and then just will be like, oh, okay, let's move out of the way. So with ETC, he's a very difficult character to use to a massive extent. During the laning phase, you want to be kind of passive, using your guitar solo to keep your health at high, but you want to stay back. The only time you should ever really be engaging is if you hit them with a Q. If they push the lane, that's going to be your best way of dealing with this. When they push the lane, you cast Q on them and then W to get them in range of the cannons, and then you can choose them. You can use your W to keep them away from you, and remember, it won't be hitting that far at level 1. And then you can just attack them when they're under tower, and then when all the minions die, or when the minions are close to dying, if people get really cheeky, like he's being now, like people will quite often be this cheeky, and then you can just slide out, and then knock them back, and then all of a sudden they're taking loads of cannon hits, and they're at really low health. Once they're at low health and you're at high health, which can happen quite a lot, don't be afraid to go on the aggressive. If they're below 50% health, don't be afraid, because you will have a lot of knockback and a lot of stun potential, and because of this, he's very, very good if he gets a gank or two. you can really push the advantage with ETC. Similarly, he's not bad at roaming because of his knockback and stun abilities. If someone's extremely pushed in the lane, you can really knock them down, but he's kind of like a lesser damage Kerrigan to that regard. So I wouldn't say he's amazing, but if everyone else is in lane and they could do with some cover, don't be afraid to throw ETC in that lane. In the mid game and in team fights, once you get Mosh Pit, before you get Mosh Pit really, your team fighting potential is going to be awful. Once you get Mosh Pit, the way you want to do it is you want to be at the front line and force them to engage on you, and as soon as they engage on you, slide behind them, get in a position and then cast Mosh Pit. You won't have level 20 at this point, but in a situation like that, you can just force them to run into it. You don't need them to be in it originally. You can be behind them and force them in a bad position so they have to run into it. But you do desperately want to get their DPS and their healers. If you had to pick one, I would say get the DPS first, but then if you can, get healers as well. And trying to lock down, as I say, anyone who can knock you out of it. Anyone with a stun or a displacement, get them with it, as they are going to be the biggest pain to you. Now, when you're playing ETC during this stage of the game, a lot of people will do the instant QW combo. I would really advise people not to do this, and there's two reasons for it. One is because when you use your Q, you're going to stun them. While they're stunned, your team will try and throw down damage on them. If that damage has any form of delay on it, such as Lunar Flare, such as Blizzard, such as Flame Strike, your W is going to knock them out of that, and it's going to make it really difficult for them to land any skill shots, and the team is going to be fragmented, so any AoE effects aren't going to land. The best way to do it, I would say, is Q, and then start body blocking. And then as soon as the damage has gone off, and people are trying to retreat, or people are trying to attack your DPS, or doing anything like that, then use W to keep them in the fight, or to keep them off someone you would rather have alive. In the early game, you can use a QW combo, that works fine, but in the late game and in the mid game, you really can't. You have to use them independently to really get the most out of them. As you get in the late game, again, adjust your team fighting style so that you be prepared to use your talents to their best effect. With Mosh Pit, again, which is going to be your main ability, make sure your team knows when it's up and when it's not. When it's up, be looking to pick a fight, because your team will retreat, and when they retreat, they tend to get more bunched up than when they're advancing. So if they're retreating from you, don't be afraid to slide and Mosh Pit them, but you will get a feel for it, and if you slide, Mosh Pit, miss them, you can always have the recovery of going again. That works surprisingly well. People tend to forget about that. It's quite a lot, especially when you just hit level 20, and you can catch a lot of people by surprise when they think they've duped the Mosh Pit, and then you can just slide on them and get them. So don't be afraid to do any of that stuff. Yeah, all kinds of good stuff like that. ETC is an incredibly fun hero. He's incredibly powerful. The recent buffs have increased his stun duration and made his sustaining like ridiculously more effective. So yeah, he's really, really fun. I would say if you're going to take him in duo queue, take him with someone who deals strong AoE damage and can take out a lot of people by him or herself. Players like Jaina can do surprisingly well. Players who work really well when someone's stunned, people like Kel'Thas, even though he can do a stun himself. Teams who have quite a lot of slows are actually really quite effective against this. If you can have someone, again, like Jaina, this is why Jaina works so well. If Jaina can slow them down with a Cone of Cold or something, apply the chill effect, and then it opens up ETC to do a Mosh Pit, then she can cast a Blizzard on them, and by the time the Blizzard's done, she might be able to cast Cone of Cold again. That's just going to be so much damage done on them in such a short amount of time, and then they can follow it up afterwards with a Ring of Frost or something like that, and because Ring of Frost is now more powerful, you see he has the combo potential here. He's an incredibly fun hero. Give him a go. Don't be afraid to play him aggressively, but you have to play him with the team, as you do with most warriors, I would say to a bigger extent with ETC. Give him a go, land the Mosh Pits, have fun with him, let your team know where you are. He's a great hero. He's become incredibly more powerful. Thank you very much for watching. I have been Mr. G, and I will see you next time.